On the night of this incident, it started to rain right before I went to bed. My bed was right under the window, so I left my blinds down and my window open a crack, just enough to hear the rain, but not enough to let the water in. I always loved the rain, because I live in the desert, so rain is a rarity. So I looked forward to lulling off to the sleep, listening to the soothing pitter-patter. Just as I was starting to nod off, that's when I heard it, the crunching outside of my window. It sounded like the rocks outside shifting beneath the weight of something. Startled, I sat up in bed and peered through the cracks of the window blinds. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could see a man's figure, craning his head from outside my window as if he was trying to find a crack in my blinds so he could see inside. Shocked at what I was looking at, I sat there frozen in fear, mere inches away from his face behind the window. For half a minute my mind was racing, trying to decide what I should do. All the while he was still bobbing and weaving his head, trying to look inside. Then I probably did the stupidest thing possible. I yanked the pulley to lift the blinds open and I asked him what he was doing. He jumped back in surprise, and that is when I was able to actually look at him. He looked like a young man in his early 20s, dressed in a stereotypical burglar's outfit, black clothes with a black beanie. I repeated myself, "What are you doing?" That is when I saw his face twist into a sadistic looking smile as he leaned closer to the window. I could tell he wasn't scared of me because he didn't run, or do anything except give me that creepy ass leering smile. He actually seemed excited to find a girl, and he moved even closer to the window. Trying not to show fear myself, I casually started yelling for my male roommate, "Hey Eric!" All the while, he just stood there staring as if he didn't believe I had a man living with me. After having to yell for him for several times, Eric finally responded half asleep. "What?" I yelled to him. There's a guy in my window, and get this, the sick guy waited for Eric to saunter all the way into my bedroom, put his glasses on, stare at him for a good 10 seconds, and say, "Bro, I'm gonna call the cops," before he finally decided to get lost. And then, still smiling, he simply picked up what looked like a black bowling bag and walked off slowly. We stared in silence as he just disappeared in the dark of the alley behind our house, occasionally turning his head to look back at us. I'm convinced you don't dress like a cat burglar ninja with a black bag full of God knows what without being up to something rapey. We then called the cops and unfortunately never found him. However, a few days later, I was walking my dog near my window when I saw something sticking out of the bush right underneath. Not knowing what it was and without thinking, I reached into the bush and pulled it out. I gasped before dropping it and running back inside. It was a hammer. I used to work in a pretty decent sized office building. There were two maintenance guys there every day to do the cleaning and stuff around the building, an older one and a younger one. The younger one was kinda strange. He never really talked to anyone and mostly stared at the floor when he walked around. I'm a polite person, so I'd sometimes say hello when passing. It got to where he'd say hello to me first and hold doors open for me. I never thought anything of it as it was normal polite behavior. Fast forward a couple months later, I started coming in each morning to find a single red rose left on my desk. I had a boyfriend who worked there at the time, and I know him well enough to know he wouldn't do something like that. We aren't terribly romantic. Neither my coworker who came in at opening or my coworker who left at close ever saw anyone leave the rose. So that means that someone is doing it either after hours or very early in the morning. After about a week or two of roses, a lady across the room filed a complaint that someone was taking roses from the banquets her husband would send her regularly. She was missing exactly the same number of roses I had found on my desk. I got really creeped out at the idea that some rando leaving stolen roses on my desk. I always returned them to her, but this is where it gets interesting. Management checked the cameras due to the rose lady's complaint, and guess what they find? Lo and behold, the younger of maintenance guys, butt naked, walking around the building. Naked, stealing a rose, and naked sitting in my chair. I was never given further info on if he engaged in any more disturbing acts while sitting in my chair completely naked, and I didn't want to know. Rumor has it there was also some very questionable and inappropriate content found on the browser history of the computer he was allowed to use in his maintenance office. Creepy maintenance dude was fired on the spot. I got a new chair ASAP and strongly considered burning all the clothes I had worn while sitting there. So scary neckbeard naked flower thief, I hope we never meet again. My brother's fiancée Laura worked as a landlord for a small apartment complex in downtown Milwaukee. A nice neighborhood, however the apartment was a bit of a dump. She and my brother were currently going through medical school, so a free vacancy was a great deal for them. She had dealt with the normal array of tenants, smelly rooms, bedbugs, noisy past hours, the usual. However, one day she had a strange occurrence with a potential tenant. A lady rang her and asked if her certain room was for rent. Laura thought it was really oddly specific, but said they did have vacancy, just not in that room. The old lady explained that she used to live there and was hospitalized a while back. She left her apartment lease as she thought she'd be hospitalized for longer. Laura set up a time to look at other apartments in the complex and hung up. She then called her manager and discussed the old lady. Hastily, the manager said to decline the visit and to turn her elsewhere, that she was asked to leave, not hospitalized, for not following the rules of the complex. Apparently, she hadn't been paying, and her room snuck up the entire floor. Laura agreed, called her back later that week, and canceled, citing the rooms were all booked. I want you to know many of the workers that helped out the landlords were intercity college kids, and not the most responsible. Laura said her job was a bit like babysitting, making sure the cleaners and people that turned over the rooms would stay on track and get all the rooms ready for occupancy. So fast forward 2 months later, Laura is showing a few rooms off to some new tenants, when all of a sudden a rather large man walked out of his room and asked to speak to Laura when she had a chance. He was very calm and just said he was having issues with his room. Because Laura, still with the new potential tenants, didn't want to scare them away, she promptly finished the tour and took the man downstairs to talk. The man had said that things in his room were out of place, and he even appeared missing. Things like his peanut butter and jam looked as if someone had been eating it. She assured him first off that it wasn't her, and that no one else in the apartment complex had keys. He then very calmly said, "I know it wasn't you, it's an elderly woman." She then asked, "How do you know this?" It was at this moment when she realized it was the same room the women had inquired about before, and about those bumbling college teens who flipped the rooms for the manager. They had forgotten to change the lock. The man said that twice the last month he had woken up to a woman sitting in his chair, which was by his bedside, just watched him all night as he slept. When asked why he didn't do anything about this, he said he was too afraid and just pretended to sleep till she left. Once the lock was changed, they never saw her again. However, just the thought of waking up and having someone staring at you in the dark all night
Sends shivers down my spine. Like, subscribe, leave comments. Leave comments of your stories, and I can use those in future videos. And subscribe.